Okay. I wanted to thank everyone for coming to support group today, and also welcome to our viewers out there on the internet. And we have a special guest today, all the way from London, Darryl Edwards, and he's known as the Fitness Explorer and also founder of Primal Play. So welcome, Darryl. Can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Great. So before, we were just talking about how we had met each other a couple years ago, and we've been at different events. I've been to your Health Unplugged event, and I've really come to enjoy our friendship. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, so I'll probably go back quite a bit. I used to work in investment banking as a technologist, and very lucrative career, doing really well for myself professionally. And I was fortunate enough to have very expensive annual health checks, and these were very thorough. Would take basically a day's worth of testing. And on one occasion, my doctor was quite alarmed at the results that came back from my blood tests, and they revealed that I was pre-diabetic. I was suffering from hypertension, high blood pressure. I was anemic, and a whole of host of issues, including having a really poor cardiovascular risk profile. So when I expressed to my doctor, well, okay, this is quite alarming. What should I do about this? I was presented with a lengthy list of cocktail of medications that I would be placed on to reduce my blood sugar, to lower my blood pressure, to sort out my cholesterol. And I was like, okay, this sounds great. How long do I need to be on the meds for? Probably for the rest of your life, Darryl. What about the side effects? Don't worry about those. If there are any side effects, we'll just switch out the meds for something else. So I've never liked taking medication, and I was a bit of a coward in relation to that. So I said, well, is there anything else that I can do? I'm relatively young. I'm a bit concerned about taking all this medication. And he said, well, tell us about your lifestyle. So I told him what I was doing, what I was eating. At that stage, I was eating a conventional low-fat diet, whole grains, and so on. And eating red meat once in a blue moon, going to the gym a few times a week. And he's like, well, moderate drinker. He was like, well, pretty much you're doing everything by the book, Darryl. This is just down to bad genetics, and there's risks. In other members of your family have these issues. So it's just down to bad genetics, and we need to put you on the meds. So I left the doctor and said, no, it's just this. I need to do something else. I came across a book that I'd had for a couple of years prior to that, called the Paleo Diet by Lauren Cordain, which I read briefly and put it back down, thinking it's not relevant to me in the 21st century. But it was like there was something about the book which was about kind of going back to basics, about living your life according to your ancestry. And I read the book again in kind of a new, in a new light, really. I decided to try the paleo diet. In a very short space of time, I had remarkable success in reversing a lot of those issues without medication. I changed my approach to exercise as well, when I recognized that movement was equally as important as everything else that I was trying to do in terms of changing my lifestyle. So I encountered the paleo lifestyle, and I continued with my work. Mainly working 7 days a week, 16, 18 hours a day. Sometimes working up until the early hours of the morning and getting up a couple of hours later. It was very difficult at times to try and maintain a healthy lifestyle whilst I was working in that line. Yeah. Yes.
Were you fit and active all your life?
What was that? Sorry.
Were you always active all your life?
No, not at all. I was as a kid, like pretty much all kids were back then. I mean, as a child, I was a a child of the 70s. Was my main, childhood years was in the 70s, and so I was very active for several hours a day, most days, definitely all through the summer. I wasn't that good at sport, so I definitely wasn't a jock, but I still kind of enjoyed sport at times. And then pretty much when I left school, that was it, really. The only activity was probably going, if I went to a nightclub and danced a bit, but that was probably about it. And, I played sport every now and again. I played five-a-side soccer. I'd play basketball every now and again, but I'd often get injured. So sort of in my early 20s, I'd get injured quite regularly, kind of going hell for leather, playing some sport. And then into my 30s, I'd join a gym, usually a New Year's resolution. I'd sign up for the year, probably would stop attending in early January. After, to be fair, probably after 1 or 2 weeks, the love affair of exercise would end. So I was pretty much sedentary from my late teens right through until my mid 30s, really.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. So
Go ahead.
Yeah, and I suppose it's fair to say that my diet was pretty atrocious as well during that time. So there were days where I would have a Snickers bar and a couple of cans of Red Bull for breakfast, which was definitely the sort of computer programmer's fuel. I was very, very proficient at writing computer code, having that for breakfast. I did that for many years, microwave dinners, takeouts, would rarely cook for myself. And in conjunction with a very sedentary lifestyle and a lack of sleep and highly stressful job, I mean, it was just a combination of all of that, which led to me having these health markers appear far too, which shouldn't have happened at all, but it was very premature, and according to my doctor and of course to myself.
Well, the story is somewhat similar to the people here that are in the group and the people that we see in the office every day, that things just go downhill, but then you start doing your own investigation and find out that traditional lifestyle advice doesn't seem to be working. So continue with that. You said you had discovered Primal Life. And
yeah, so I suppose once I'd started to make those lifestyle changes and had reinforcement and validation of that by having regular health checkups, I was like, if this stops working, I'm happy to look for an alternative. And fortunately, I kept on having blood tests. I kept on having positive results in terms of no longer being pre-diabetic, no longer having high blood pressure, and so on. And people started asking me questions about this change, like, what have you been doing? Because the changes are remarkable. And I suppose before I forget, I need to add this whole concept of being skinny fat as well. So I was kind of thin on the outside, fat on the inside. And I had very high levels of body fat, which you couldn't really see from the outside. So I appeared to be slim and healthy, but internally I was a bit of a mess. People would start asking me, well, what have you done? And I would tell them, I tried to explain the lifestyle, but didn't feel qualified in order to give them advice. So I decided to cross-train into nutrition, and also became a personal trainer, so certified as a personal trainer. And I started to get mentored by people who I really respected, and just was trying to soaking in as much information as possible. And after a few years, I decided I wanted to leave my career in banking and in technology and focus on, sharing the good news about how you can radically transform your health through fairly straightforward lifestyle changes. So that's where I am today, many years later.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story. Well, I've really appreciated to meet you and to hear some of the advice that you share with the community, because often we hear things like, well, you just change your diet and you don't have to exercise. And we're against exercise because for the past 50 years, they just told us to eat less and exercise more. So we're saying forget exercise. That's not important. And disagree with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate because food is very, very powerful. Food is definitely medicine. There's no doubt about that. And oftentimes you'll hear the quote, you can't outrun a bad diet, is often bandied about in cyberspace. And I've lost 50 pounds without even walking outdoors. I stayed indoors, changed my diet, and I've just dropped all this weight. And that's what people tend to focus on is weight loss, and I can just change my diet and everything is going to be fine. The downside to that is even if you just look at a common sense point of view, which is what I always try and focus on common sense as well as scientific evidence. If we look at our ancestry, if we looked at what we had to do to get this perfect, whatever you believe is your perfect template for food, what would we have had to have done to obtain that food? And the one thing we wouldn't do is to be sit down idle all day waiting for food to happen. That just wasn't the case. We'd have to work and graft very, very hard to obtain a meager amount of calories. That was the reality. And so in the 21st century, where we can be sedentary and still live and survive and have no issues with living and maintaining existence in the 21st century, we take the easy option, which is, I don't really have to move, do I? Because I don't really enjoy doing that. I don't really like exercise, but I have to eat. I've got to eat several times a day, so that's what I'll focus on. The reality is there are so many health benefits that come from movement and physical activity, which pretty much far outweigh anything else that you can do. I mean, that's, in terms of scientific evidence and the body of evidence, that's the reality. Everything from cardiovascular disease risk, from insulin resistance, from reductions in cancers, from mental health, even from things like gut flora. The more active you are, you have more beneficial gut flora. It's equally as powerful, in my opinion, probably more powerful and more potent than food. So as I do follow a paleo template, I do recognize the benefits of eating healthy and avoiding many of the artificial and processed foods, and the kind of the focusing on one macronutrient over the others, which has been, as we know, everything's been about low-fat diets for the last couple of generations, and it's now shifting to a low carb template for those of us who are on that roadmap. But there are so many other areas of lifestyle that needs to be reined in as well to improve health, not just food.
So Darryl, do you think that the macronutrient mix varies based on, say, the age of the person or the activity of the person? We were joking earlier that it seems that the advice to consume protein, how much protein you consume, it seems to be inversely related to the age of the person giving you that advice. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. It can be, protein can be seen as almost like a young person's focus. You hear protein and you think of, people who are kind of lean and muscle bound, and you've got to get your protein to build muscle, and that's why proteins is necessary. But there are limits to the amount of protein you can absorb, the amount of in one meal, in one sitting. There is some kind of totality on that. Either you'll get rid of that through your digestive processes and out of the body, or you'll have a buildup of toxins if you eat too much protein. And so it's about the relevant amount of protein that's suitable for you, regardless of age. Because one thing we also need to remember is that it becomes more difficult for us to digest protein as we age. Our digestive system gets less and less efficient as we age. So for those who decide that they need to be eating less and less protein as they get older, especially if they're not performing any movement, that's really not the direction that we should be going in. It shouldn't be the advice that we're given. There is an appropriate amount of protein that we require on a daily basis, not just for muscle building, but also for the recovery and repair of the body as well, and the maintenance of repair functions where protein is required. But we don't want to overdo it. I mean, it's as simple as that.
So yeah, we want to prevent sarcopenia as we age. We want to maintain our muscle mass. And, on the one side, we have groups of people that are telling us that, the answer to longevity is to reduce carbs and protein. And maybe
yes.
Fat. And maybe the air is bad for us in terms of aging, so we shouldn't breathe much fat either. So we really have to find a balance.
Yeah, we've got to find a balance. I mean, yeah, you're right. If you look at markers like, you look at things like mTOR, for example, which is linked to excessive protein consumption and IGF-1. And so people say, well, look, if you look at the evidence, there's less longevity if there's excessive consumption of proteins and there's excessive visibility of these markers. But there is something that is right about moderation. I know it's not a very fashionable phrase, and it can be used inappropriately, but yeah, I think
we get it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think for most people, looking at protein, for example, if you're sedentary and you're eating lots of protein, and your body doesn't have any signaling to say, "Oh my goodness, I was actually very active today. I need to focus on repairing the muscle damage that occurred throughout my day," then that protein is wasted. And so your kidneys are working harder, your digestive system is working harder, and you're not receiving the benefit of the protein you're taking on board. So for those individuals, they probably should be eating less protein because there's no requirement for it. That's the reality. Somebody who's more active, somebody who has a healthy digestive system, they should be consuming adequate amounts of protein. And they should be eating, if anything, should be eating a bit more as they age, as long as they're maintaining their physical activity. If you look at the World Health Organization recommendations for physical activity, it's the same for an 18-year-old as it is for a 65-year-old. It's exactly the same. 30 minutes of aerobic activity, 5 days a week, and a couple of days of resistance-based, strength training. That's the minimum requirement for physical activity for an adult. And unfortunately, many of us are not meeting that requirement. It's only 5% of adults in the US meet the minimum requirement for physical activity. 5%. If you don't hit that 150 minutes a week and don't hit the at least 2 days of strength-based work, you're actually sedentary. You are the definition of being physically inactive. And if you think about it, that's just the bare minimum. That's not a gold standard. So not only are we falling far short of what we should be doing, we're not even hitting that baseline. And it's appalling for myself when I think about when I used to go to the gym 2 or 3 days a week. One day I'd do my legs, next day, day off, then on the third day I'd do chest and back, probably do a 5-minute cardio warm up, and then on Friday I might do, biceps and triceps on the Friday. And even when I was going to the gym 3 days a week, I was still sedentary. I was still physically inactive because I just wasn't doing enough moderate intensity activity. And so I think when we're hearing this message being broadcast about it's all about food, abs are made in the kitchen and you don't need to be physically active, just go for a walk, that's all you need to do. I think we're just doing, it's a disservice actually to what's required for a healthy lifestyle. Most of us aren't doing enough. That's the reality.
Yeah. So Darryl, you make a distinction between exercise on the one side and on the other side, movement and activity. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So, I think movement and physical activity counts more than exercise. Because, we have to move. You don't have to exercise. We do have to move. Hopefully we are moving. But when we do move, we need to make the right sort of decisions. So it's a bit like making the decision when we're preparing a meal. We all have some idea as what we believe is going to be a healthful meal. We also need to approach movement and physical activity in that way. And so exercise is almost like taking a supplement. It's a substitute for the lack of activity that we get day to day. Before we were either out in the fields or building shelter or hunting and gathering, whatever we're doing, which was taking up a lot of work effort, just isn't required now. So some of us do have to exercise because we just don't get enough physical activity done. And as I say, I saw a video recently of, a high intensity training protocol, with somebody walking, and it's like, that's not high intensity. Most people should be able to walk and not get out of breath, walking for 10 or 20 seconds. That's not high intensity for pretty much anyone, really. And so there needs to be some education around what exactly is required to get the right number of movement minutes per day and the right number of kind of, physical activity minutes and exercise minutes to kind of bridge the gap. That's what's required. It should be looked at another form of nutrition, but nutrition for the body and the mind, rather than just feeding the gut and feeding your health in terms of what you put in your mouth. There should be a focus on the whole body also requiring nutrients and nutrition that can only come from movement. Yeah.
So, I like that regardless of age, you work with all people, and
even you, Jeff.
Yes. Occasionally, if I behave.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if you have an individual that hasn't been active, how they would go about getting started. What kind of simple advice would you give to that individual?
As you know, Jeff, I do hate to exercise, even though I'm a big advocate of physical activity. I kind of hate exercise because a lot of the messaging in conventional fitness is about how hard can you work, how hard can you push yourself in the shortest amount of time. And a lot of the images you see, the kind of fitspirational images, are just pain and grimacing on the face. People collapse on the floor after their hard workout. You've got to prove yourself by, how many miles you can run in the shortest possible time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I think there's just some repulsion, and we just don't feel good about exercise, many of us. We repel exercise because there's an association with pain. It's an association with punishment. You've got to punish yourself for having that naughty food. Do you know what I mean? It's like, oh my gosh, I had a really bad night yesterday in the kitchen, so I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to work it off today. And that shouldn't be the association. And when I think about myself as a kid, as a child, physical activity was fun. We were climbing trees, we were playing tag, we were like playing hide and seek. We were getting up to mischief. We just had fun when it came to physical activity. And that's what I believe adults should try to reclaim and recapture. It's that enjoyment of movement, which is really, really important. And if you aim to recapture that, then the individual can decide what that is for them. It might be joining a dance class. It might be taking a bike out of the shed and dust it off and go and start cycling again. Whatever you really enjoy and you don't feel as if you're punishing yourself is what you should gravitate towards. And so Primal Play and the website primalplay.com was really created to enable people to see that there is another way. There's an alternative to conventional fitness, which will make you want to hopefully get out of your couch or armchair and move, rather than think, I'd rather just sit here and watch somebody else move instead. Do you know what I mean? It's like we often are more attracted to watching sportsmen and women perform sporting feats than actually wanting to do it ourselves. So yeah, I think that's the only way we're going to see a huge shift and engagement in physical activity is if it becomes more fun and engaging. That's what I believe.
Yeah. Well, you have a client-based service online, so we get to sit and watch you be active. Isn't that how it works?
Well, I hope that some of the stuff that I do will encourage others to want to do the same thing. And oftentimes the testimonials I receive from those who take part in my workshops or in my sessions tends to be, one, I had so much fun. I'm laughing, and even though I'm sweating, I'm laughing. I'm having fun, and I didn't realize how difficult some of the movements were. I'm doing stuff I never thought I could. I couldn't imagine that I could do. It didn't feel as if I was punishing myself, and that's really gratifying for me, because it should be fun. The essence of it should be that it's something that we enjoy, and as I say, a lot of times it isn't fun at all for people. You see people running, even somebody who says they love running. Oh, I love running. I do my 60-minute run every day. I get up at 4 a.m. and I go for a run. And you just have a look at their faces at 4:15 when they're outdoors. They don't seem to be having any fun at all. So, or usually they say, "Oh, it was great when I finished the run because I had all those endorphins rushing around. So it was great when I finished." But endorphins like a natural painkiller. That's what endorphins are. So, so if you've got to wait to the end of the activity to enjoy it, again, that's not very appealing to me. I want people to have instant gratification when it comes to movement and enjoying movement. And Jeff, you've done a few of my sessions now, and hopefully you can say the same in relation to, it's kind of hard work, but it's actually a lot of fun at the same time. And it's also suitable for anyone, regardless of their age, their physical capability. It's not meant to exclude anyone, and it's not meant to kind of focus just on the fit and elite individuals. It's for everyone.
Yeah. Oh, it's a lot of fun, the social activities. Don't let us to take over the conversation, by the way. You're all welcome to join in. So, yeah, it's fun, the social part of it. But what if you don't have those, that many people, around? What do you do if it's just you?
Yeah, I try and perform, there's some activities actually are better if you have a group or have a partner. But I try to create the right mindset, a kind of a playful mindset. And I think it's the attitude that you have, not the activity, which dictates how enjoyable it is. And I think that should be number one in the kind of for the initiation. It should be like, well, what do I enjoy doing? What am I going to have fun doing? And what's going to be effective is the third. Because if it's just fun and playful, but it's not actually going to have a training or conditioning effect, then again, it's a waste of time doing. The thing about exercise, which is kind of different to food in some respects, is, the benefits of exercise require some sort of overload principle. So if I'm starting off being very sedentary and I decide, okay, day one, I'm going to walk for a mile. That's going to be my activity today. And it takes me 30 minutes to walk a mile, say. If I continue to walk a mile, after walking that first mile, which I haven't done for, say, 20 years, I might end up feeling sore. I might get out of breath at the end of it. I might go, oh my goodness, that was quite hard work for me to achieve. If I continue to do that 1 mile walk for the next few years, after a few weeks, the body has already adjusted to that work effort. You continuing to walk for a mile will do absolutely nothing at all to the body. The body requires constant stimulus and overload in order to maintain your level of fitness and to improve your level of fitness. So one way of doing that is people decide, okay, I won't walk a mile, I'll do 2 miles. I'll run now. I'll run 5 miles. I'll do a marathon. I'll do an ultra marathon. I'll literally run for 5 weeks. That's one way of thinking about overload. The other, which I believe is more healthy and appropriate, is to engage in as many varied activities as possible, multiple durations, different intensities, different volumes of work that I believe is more helpful and mimics our natural movement patterns far more. And so, yeah, I try to find something fun. I try to find something that's engaging for me, and I try to find something that's effective as well, most importantly. So I want to move because there's going to be a health benefit, not just a fitness benefit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if I'm just rolling around in the grass and laughing, yeah, it's fun, but I'm not actually going to be improving my cardiovascular fitness by doing that.
Right.
There are times where I need to be pushing myself in a controlled way and building on that to ensure that I'm going to be getting continuous benefit from my physical activity.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Mary.
I just wanted to ask, so many jobs today are often office oriented. You know, you're working on a computer, sitting at a desk. I know they're coming up with different ways of sitting at a desk. What about, there's a fellow that he comes in here once in a while, and he came, and for the whole session he stands, and he
Yes,
that is, you know, he's read that that's a very helpful way to, and I wonder, what do you think of standing, you know, at your desk?
Or those standing desks.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
standing desk. Yeah, so I'm using a standing desk now, and what you may realize is if you're standing for even a short space of time, you tend to start fidgeting. It's very difficult to stay in the same spot if you're standing.
Yeah.
The body just decides to spontaneously move around, and so there's something about not sitting and just standing and moving around a little bit more, which is obviously very beneficial. There's something which is also really important. There's an enzyme called lipoprotein lipase, which is responsible for breaking down fats that circulate around the body, triglycerides being one of them. And if you're sitting, that enzyme is shut off. Okay, if you just from sitting to standing activates the enzyme. As soon as there's muscle contraction of the big muscles, i.e. the muscles in the legs, the muscles in the back, as long as they're active, this enzyme is activated. So just spending time standing throughout your working day will have significant benefits over and above the additional calorie burning output that you're going to get. So, you know, there's some, again, really good, strong evidence about the benefits of having that continuous contraction of your muscle. Here's another interesting fact. If you ever hear about insulin sensitivity, insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, most of the discussions on blogs, on podcasts, obviously talk about the benefits of changing your diet and having a lower carb or a zero carb approach to maintaining your blood glucose and your glucose metabolism. But the biggest recipient of blood glucose is muscle tissue, muscle cells. 70 to 80% of blood glucose should be forced into muscle tissue. If you're sedentary, if you're not active, it has nowhere to go. There's no use for it. And the other powerful thing about movement is it doesn't need insulin to drive blood glucose into the cell. It doesn't need insulin. Yeah, as long as the muscle is contracted, as long as there's actually movement involved, there are other transporters which don't require insulin that will force blood glucose into the muscle tissue, and it's a 50-fold increase in transportation to the muscle if you're moving, significant amount. So again, you might see studies saying after your evening meal, go for a walk because that will reduce your blood glucose levels. Exercise would increase, insulin sensitivity. There's lots of good evidence out there. So yeah, get a standing desk. I would say sitting and standing is probably more beneficial than just standing all day, because then you're getting a bit more movement in. And I would also try to get regular movement breaks. And that might be as simple as going into the next office, going to the next floor if you're in a multi-floor building to speak to a colleague rather than sending them an email. Trying to think about ways where you can just add a few more minutes every single day, which will then lead to more and more time where you're moving without affecting your productivity, because that's, obviously quite important. But yeah, I think that's the way to start thinking about it. Rather than having that big block of 60 minutes a day of movement, think about those 5 to 10 minutes a day where, per hour, say, where you can add a bit more movement than what you have currently.
What do you think about not skipping lunch and going out for a walk?
Yeah, I mean, again, any opportunity you have to get some movement into your day, I think is going to be beneficial. I mean, and not just for the physical benefits. Going for a walk at lunch, it's going to take your mind off things. You can start appreciating the environment, being mindful. It's a great stress reliever, exercise, a great stress reliever. Again, there are just so many benefits, side benefits that can come for you kind of switching off for a bit and becoming active. And I remember for myself, lunch was literally grabbing a sandwich and rushing back to my desk as quickly as possible. I mean, that was my lunch, and kind of stuffing my face with a sandwich in 5-10 minutes and back up, it's like one hand on the keyboard, one hand holding the sandwich in my, and that was kind of lunch. And I think even, it's not so much about, I know it was a sandwich, it was bread, it was, but I think it's also about the fact that you're so disconnected now from the process of eating. It's become just like an inconvenience, like, oh my gosh, I've got to eat again. Oh, just get it out of the way. So you're not even chewing your food properly. It's like you almost want to bypass your mouth and get the food into your stomach as quickly as possible. And I think even that old wives' tale about, chew 10, 20 times before you swallow and, just take your time eating, I think it just makes a lot of sense to me. And it's something that we should really consider, whether we're going for a walk or whether we're spending a bit more time thinking about our food in terms of its preparation and sourcing it, as well as how we eat it, engaging in some interesting conversation, then spending 10, 15 minutes going for a walk after you've had lunch, which is also going to be great for managing insulin sensitivity. So yeah, there's a big picture around all of these themes, I would say.
Yeah. So yeah, we definitely have busy lives. And as you know, we live in Colorado. This is just a wonderful state. We have beautiful weather and ample opportunity to get out. And certainly we have many that take advantage of it, but we also have many that don't.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yes. Yeah. And it's a testament to the fact that, I mean, Colorado is definitely one of the healthier states, and I know one of the more physically active states in the US. And I think it's evident when I was there recently, a few months ago. It was astounding to see, a different picture of America in Colorado in comparison to other parts of the US. And I just think we should spend more time thinking about the bigger picture in terms of our lifestyle choices. And when we consider why something works or doesn't, is it because we should be spending more time just investing in that one path to betterment, or should we actually start factoring in all those other areas that are important as well? And this holistic approach, I believe, just has to be better for us all. And it's a message that's been communicated right from the beginning of the earliest strands of medicine and scientific medicine with Hippocrates. That was the messaging way back then. Medical practitioners, GPs as we call them here, used to prescribe physical activity. They prescribe, sleep, the amount of sleep that you would require. They would prescribe lifestyle interventions because they recognized that was far more powerful than the medicine of their day. The prevention was far better than trying to cure the symptoms. So please, ask more questions, because I could just run away with talking about this sort of stuff forever. So
yeah, we still have 10 or 15 minutes. Yeah.
I have a question. So Darryl, I'm in the back here.
That's Aaron. But, yeah.
I know that you're busy and you travel a lot. What do you do on a day-to-day basis to get movement in, both when you're at home and traveling? I want to know personally what Darryl does. to kind of inspire others?
Okay. So I personally try not to schedule any dedicated activity. I try to, as I say, try to incorporate it into my day and think about the opportunities for movement. And so that might be, running up and down the stairs. It might be taking opportunities to carry stuff, rather than taking the easy way out. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna lift this stuff, whatever it is. I'll regularly sprint for the bus, in terms of public transport. That's the sort of stuff that I do just to increase the amount of activity that I can get done. In terms of traveling, again, I'm like, if I see a travelator, those kind of walking, I don't know what they call them in the US. I think they're walking walkways. I think they're called in the US. Yeah, moving walkways. I'm like, for me, I avoid at all costs. I try and avoid stairs. I try and avoid lifts and escalators. And I take the stairs. I walk. That's the sort of stuff that I do, and I take every single opportunity to do so. Yeah, and before you know it, you've had 10, 15, 20 minutes of non-idle time, just going about your day, just going about your business.
Darryl, do you have one of the watches that keep track of your steps, things like that? Is there anything you recommend?
I do have one, which kind of tracks, everything from your resting heart rate to how many steps you've done, whether you've climbed stairs or not. I think they can be quite useful as long as it doesn't end up in your drawer, after a couple of weeks wearing it. So so oftentimes these devices can be a novelty that wears off. If you're the kind of person who does need to track, who does want to have some numbers to see, that there's some improvement, then I think they're a great idea. This kind of wearable tech is very popular. But even if you think about, do you remember Pokemon Go? That pretty much the whole world was talking about a couple of months ago. I mean, I haven't heard anyone mention it recently. I don't see people in the streets anymore walking around, walking into lampposts, playing Pokemon Go. The novelty wears off, and so we need intrinsic kind of motivations for doing this stuff, not something external, something prodding us to do it. We need to start creating this passion ourselves, and that's the only way we're going to have longevity here. It's a bit like, I'm sure you're aware, 21-day or 30-day challenges are really great idea. They can transform people's lives. But how many times are people doing the same 30-day challenges again and again and again and feeling very apologetic about it? It'd be far better for somebody to have a whole life approach to maintaining a healthier lifestyle. Then you have less disappointment. Then you're just really focusing on health and longevity. And so for me, who I've been living this lifestyle now for about 13 years or so, probably a bit longer now, I've been living this lifestyle. And from the outset, I was like, this is for life. Do you know what I mean? I mean, like, I'm not messing around. This isn't going to be about 28 days of messing around. I want to have a better and healthier life. I want to be here for my kids and grandkids. I want to live a long and healthy life, and that includes the quality of life. I don't want to be here, if I'm here until 100, I don't want to spend the last 30, 40 years being, in a wheelchair and not being able to live an independent life. If I have the opportunity to have an independent life, that's what I want to be focusing on. So, we need a paradigm shift that takes us away from short-term gains to, a realistic lifelong outcome.
We still see a lot of people that don't see the eye on the prize, the long-term part of it, and it's short-term, and they'll just never change. I mean, it's like everything in their life, they want a challenge every day, and that includes a 30-day challenge. And they just, like you said, they just go from one challenge to the next. And
Yeah.
That's okay. That's not going to work long term.
And Darryl, in terms of you talked about the need to overload the body and that whole high intensity thing. So if you were structuring that in your day, you're saying, so like a high intensity, sprint up and down the stairs, What else
Yeah, I mean,
as ways to work in that HIIT training?
go to my website, primalplay.com. Buy my book, Paleo Fitness.
Shameless plug. We got it.
Yeah, shameless plug. Well, I'm not even ashamed of it. It's like, yeah. Yeah, so Paleo Fitness. But no, I mean,
We'll call it
there are some
plug because we like it.
There are some really good resources out there which can kind of fast track gaining the knowledge required to work in the right type of intensity. And so even with the high intensity protocol, the headlines tend to be, yeah, I can work out for 4 minutes a week and that's it. Just work out for 20 seconds and as hard as you can, and then you don't need to do anything else for the whole week.
Sit on the couch.
And then I can sit on the couch the rest of it. And it's like, no, we should try just to be more active in general. And that's all intensities. Low intensity, which is going to be going for a leisurely walk, moderate intensity, which is going to be, a very brisk walk, hiking, going to be on a bike, going to be, playing tag, playing, basket, playing ball, whatever. High intensity, which for a lot of people is almost impossible to do actually, because those studies that refer to high intensity training tend to be trained athletes who can push their bodies to 100%, which is pretty much what you have to do with high intensity training protocols. And a lot of those athletes, they throw up. That's what happens. They're pushing their bodies so hard. There's such a high levels of toxins in the body from working that hard that they throw up. It creates nausea. So one, people need to be aware of what high intensity really means. And secondly, not everyone is built for that. We should be focusing on more movement minutes per day. That's what we should be focusing on. All different types of intensities and all different types of movement patterns. So there should be some balance in there. There should be some flexibility. There should be some coordination and agility. There should be some speed as well as stamina and endurance. There's so many components of fitness. There's so many recipes that you can create. So again, if you think about movement like you would do buying a cookbook, you pick and mix what's going to deliver the right sort of result, and that's what's required. There isn't a silver bullet here. All this stuff matters. So I suffered to begin with because I started doing very high intensity training. And I was getting sick 2-3 times a year, like, upper respiratory tract infections. I was getting infections all the time because I was pushing myself too hard. I wasn't recovering correctly. And I was I was in a highly stressful job, and then I'd be trying to work out in a highly stressed way. And that wasn't effective for me in the long term. It worked well in the short term, that's for sure. It improved my fitness, but it didn't necessarily improve my health. So yeah, this variability and this variance of activity levels is what's important. So definitely get some high intensity work done, or vigorous intensity, I should say more appropriately. Get some vigorous activity in, but get more moderate and low intensity activity in as well. Do something you enjoy and do something that's going to lead to health benefits. And again, if you are really stuck, shameless plug again, Paleo Fitness.
So Darryl, you're coming back to Colorado in February because we invited you to Low Carb Breckenridge.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, we can maybe do some Primal play sessions there, and you're going to give a presentation as well.
Yeah, for sure. That's the best way to experience Primal play is to attend one of my sessions. And as I say, I recognized that I wasn't going to be. I didn't want to be going. I don't think I'd be going to the gym, at 70, 80 years old, doing 3 sets of 10. I didn't see my life mapping out that way when it came to exercise. And with me and Primal play, it's something that it motivates me. It definitely motivates others. It motivates my clients, and it's something that's really engaging and effective. And going back right to the beginning, when I was told by my doctor that I had all of these lifestyle issues, they were only removed completely once I had not just diet sorted, but my sleep sorted and my physical activity sorted. And I've maintained that kind of status quo in terms of my health markers very well, pretty much following the same prescription right from the beginning. So I haven't had to kind of constantly chase whatever the latest and greatest is in the health and nutrition world. You know, I've pretty much kept that back to basics approach right from the beginning, and it's worked very well up until now. And, you know, if for any reason it's no longer effective, I may need to revisit that. But I think this kind of simple approach to focusing on all of these areas, all of these kind of pillars of health are really important. You know, food is, you know, a great gateway to living a healthier lifestyle, but I think that's what it should be viewed as a gateway to what else is there that I need to focus on. You know, that can lead to better health, my relationships with others, you know, removing toxins in the home, you know, having real and meaningful conversations with people, you know, spending time sitting down, you know, with others, having some community around eating meals. I mean, all these things that would have been part and parcel of our lives even a couple of generations ago, which are now seen as, you know, you only see museums or run reruns of of sitcoms of you know, the 50s and 60s. You know, we need to revisit some of those behaviors that were, you know, not that long ago.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we can call it a day then.
Yeah.
But
Well, thank you.
yeah, I wanted to thank Erin because she really coordinated with you to make this happen, because we've wanted to do it for a while.
Yeah, thank you very much, Erin and Jeff and everyone else in attendance. And I appreciate you taking time out of your day to listen to me. And I'm sorry that there aren't any subtitles here, just in case you don't understand my English accent. But no, thank you very much for your questions and engagement, and it was really enjoyable for me. So thank you.
So your website's primalplay.com.
Yes, website is primalplay.com. My name is Darryl Edwards. My social media tag is @FitnessExplorer, and actually I believe I have a book which is probably in your office as well, Jeff.
We have several.
Yeah. So paleo from A to Z, or Z from American Cousins, is basically like a paleo lifestyle, healthy lifestyle guide. So that kind of discusses some of the stuff that we discussed today is kind of all mentioned in that book.
Okay, Darryl. We'll see you next time, mate.
Jeff, that's the worst English accent I think I've ever heard. It's far worse than my American accent, that's for sure.
Okay, have a good evening.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Bye-bye.